health is so important more than ever. It's really important. Not only did we all go through like some mental instability after COVID, right? After the pandemic, we all kind of learned how to deal with some unworldly things, honestly. There was a lot of chaos going on. So it may have like caused instability in your life. A lot of times it broke up relationships, or at least it uncovered a lot of stagnant energy or things that were just not like moving in our relationships. It started drama within families. This is stuff that was already under the surface. We already had these things going on in our life beneath the surface, behind the job, but we weren't paying attention to it. So when we were at home all the time, like all we could do was pay attention to these things. And a lot of the times it was just a purging of energy, a purging of things that we're not paid attention to, right? A lot of things came to light during that time. So for that reason, it kind of forced us to work through our traumas and to work through our toxicity, right? So a lot of us like really mentally grew during that time. And even if there was a time where you kind of like lost yourself, I'm sure you found yourself right back, or it took you some time to rediscover yourself or to come back to your true nature. I mean, these are cycles that happen to us all throughout our lifetimes, so nothing normal. But the reason why it's so important now is because, like, if you've been able ever to overcome something in your past before, then you have it in you to overcome anything else that you have in your future. So a lot of times we can't say the same for like family members or loved ones that have like an addiction or something like that. What we can do though for ourselves, just like, to focus on self right now, is to analyze ourselves and ask like what are our weaknesses and how can we work on those things? Because I'm almost concerned for society and its future, because obviously there's a lot of conspiracy and there's a lot of stuff that goes on, a lot of control and a lot of manipulation within these like systems of government. But the most like eerie thing that I've seen lately is how there are a lot of like mental health crises, right? We seen recently in December there was like two occasions in LA where a child like unalived their parent, right? And there was like this opera singer, and then you saw the director and stuff that recently has been on the news, and what they've been pushing a lot, not just online, what I've seen, firsthand on YouTube and what some companies are doing, but what they're pushing out in like mainstream media, especially correlated with these news outlets and like these crises of these kids who are unalive their parents. And not to mention, like just recently, the whole Menendez thing came up, right? And it's just like this thing of like, why do we get to the point where we hurt our family? Like, is there control manipulation there? Yes. But it's more about like they're really targeting people with like mental instabilities, right? And it could be someone who has just like mental health problems, an addiction, someone who's just shown signs of like being incapable to like take care of themselves, right? Like being homeless, not having the finances, not being able to have enough money or a foundation for your children. Anything like that, any kind of weak point like that, they're really targeting and exploiting, because as you see, there's a lot of homeless people. Like they've raised the rent on us. There's so many people getting kicked out of their homes just because like they refuse to pay like $100 more every single year, right? Or even sometimes it spikes up more than that, right? $1,500 could get you a two-bedroom in 2020, and now like in LA at least it's $3,000 for a two-bedroom. In the Inland Empire it's 2,200 for a two-bedroom. A one-bedroom is like minimum 1,800 out here in Inland Empire and maybe around the country, but in LA it's like a one-bedroom is like at least 2,200. So it's crazy. But because these people have refused to like pay more for like a shack or like, little small places or things, houses, single family homes that have been like run down or not maintained well, because they refuse to pay more in these places, now they're being labeled and exploited as someone who's incapable of taking care of themselves or incapable of taking care of their kids. And some of them actually, just by saying no and refusing to pay that and just experiencing life like in their car, if you just don't have the mental capability to like keep yourself motivated and keep yourself well, you will decline, in cognition and decline in just like you will start losing memory just out of pure depression, basically. So a lot of these people who are out on the streets who are depressed just because of their circumstances are being labeled as like having mental health problems. And what they're doing with these people is like I don't know if you've seen, but they're taking them off the streets and putting them into these homeless camps that are like really clean, and then everybody has their own little shed. It's like a 6x8 shed, and it has like heating and air conditioning. Don't know if they provide blankets and mattresses. From what I saw in the videos of these places, before anybody had moved in, there was nothing. It was just like the little shack and stuff, right? And I believe even the bathrooms, they share the bathroom. Like you don't get your own private bathroom. It's literally just like a little, not even a cabin. It's like a shed, right? Like a 6x8 shed, heating and cooling. And then, you got to share restrooms and all this stuff. So it kind of feels like a prison, because you have to like sign a waiver just to be able to qualify and to get admitted into these places, right? And they're all over Inland Empire in LA. Just YouTube them or Google them. They're homeless. I don't know what they are, but they're for homeless people, like homeless shelters, homeless encampments. But it's not like the kinds that you go to where it's like indoor and they give you a bed for the night. It's the kind where like you sign up, you sign a contract, you have to abide by certain rules, and then you get access to this like little shed that keeps you like safe and everything, right? Out of the weather and all that. And because it's like winter, it's very appeasing to people. So people have been doing it. But like my problem is like because I've, been into conspiracies for so long, and I know about like the concentration camp conspiracy that they used to have. It almost feels like that's what that is, a concentration camp, right? And it's like I don't know if some of these people, when they sign these waivers, do they have to consent to getting medication? Do they have to consent to getting treatment? And because I do tune into the girl, mainly her page where she talks about this, it's called BJ Investigates. And she talks a lot about this conservatorship and whatnot. And I just feel like a lot of that is correlated. Like, if you commit a crime or you're homeless for the fact, and you're showing that you're incapable of taking care of yourself or a child or something, like someone can put you in a conservatorship, which is just a contract that makes you a slave. Even though you're a full grown adult, another adult will be your guardian. And so with the rich folks, the reason I brought up like the whole celebrities and all that stuff is just because like not only are they showing mental crisis because like these kids were kind of normal at one point, and now just through all the abuse, they've gotten really bad. Like they just have mental health problems in general, right? Not just addictions, just like really bad mental health problems. So like even if they were off the drugs, even if they got off their addiction, they would definitely still show signs of like being incapable, not having the right cognition just to function in society. So the reason they put celebrities in conservatorships like Britney Spears would be because like the guardian, the person who owns or takes ownership of that like quote unquote slave, right? Like let's just say Britney Spears is technically a slave because someone has guardianship over her in a contract. Like she can't make decisions for herself, meaning she does not have access to her own money. She is not allowed to spend her own money because she's technically incapable. The guardian gets access to all the bank accounts, all the money, all the trusts, all the real estate, all the properties, all the cars, everything that they own. The guardian is like technically the new owner, right? So like that's why there was a lot of rumors about like Justin Bieber spiraling out, because people were thinking that he was getting led astray and, getting pushed into addiction so that his wife can be his new guardian and she can own everything that he owns, even without him basically consenting, because he's shown signs of addiction or signs of being a bad parent, right? And so that's where we're at in life. Like they have these contracts now, conservatorships, where you basically don't have your own rights anymore. If somebody has conservatorship over you, not only are you a slave, where they basically tell you when you can and cannot go somewhere, like you can't leave the house, you can't drive a car. They're basically not enslaving these people, but they're exploiting them for whatever they have. So, like, if I'm Britney Spears, if I'm this slave and I have cars, or I have a trust, or I have a house, or I have a property, my guardianship now owns those things. And the guardian doesn't have to be a legal parent or a biological parent. As we saw with the whole Britney Spears conservatorship, her conservator was it Lou Taylor? Whatever. Don't quote me on any of these names because I don't know them hand by hand, but I remember from the Netflix series. It was some woman, or it was her father or something at one point, right? Her father was her guardian. And not only did he own everything that she had, he could tell her, he basically always had her under surveillance, right? If these parents want to go off and live their own life and be free themselves, they're not going to be there standing over the person the whole time. So they get security. They hire people with the money, right, that they have now, free to them, the resources that they now have. They hire security, and now, like, poor Britney Spears, or let's just say me, the slave themselves, don't have freedom and we're constantly being watched. Like, how would you feel if you were a full blown adult and you went through some trauma and now you really just like are trying to rebuild yourself, but you're deemed as someone who's incapable and someone else takes ownership of you and they just take everything from you? Let's just say that they loved the power, that they abuse it. And, hand in hand, they abuse you and exploit you. And like, it leaves you worse. How can you recover from something like that? Like, how can you get out of a conservatorship? Like, you don't. It's just like once you get in it, there's no way out. You can have another different guardian, possibly. I don't know how that works, but it's like you're still not free. And not only that, like you're just not able to make decisions. Like you just feel like a child again, but you're a full-blown adult. How in that, in your mind, your soul, your heart, and your spirit, how is that going to help you be motivated to do more? Like there's even a clip in the Britney Spears documentary on Netflix where she's saying like she had like no motivation. Like she felt like she just was not free at all. Like she was just, you know, um, in prison basically, and she was by somebody else, just because she had like one crash out. And so that's where I'm getting to. Is just like take care of your mental health, because if you ever crash out, like if you ever crash out, and I've crashed out, a few times. Thankfully, it was nothing super crazy. Like, yes, one time it was super crazy, right? It was like 5150. But there's been other times where I do stupid shit because I'm crashing out and like I just luckily don't get in trouble. Like one time there was this girl that was trying to get at my man, and I went and I fucking went to her job and I told her off, and like I broke some shit in her store and I could have gone to jail. Like somebody could have put me in a conservatorship for something like that, right? But luckily I didn't. But these are the things that I'm talking about. Like if you don't have, ownership of your own mind, if you don't have balance, if you don't master your mind and learn how to go through trauma and get through it and overcome it, it can consume you, right? Like anger, jealousy, rage consumed me at that moment, and I made poor choices. And due to those poor choices, somebody could have put me either in jail or into some kind of slave ship conservatorship, like that contract. And so that's what my concern is. Like a lot of us, we have traumas. Like we go through experiences in life. We go through Saturn returns, through karmic things. And it's like, why should anyone enslave us for like one mistake, right? Like sometimes it just takes that one mistake. Sometimes you can be a juvenile, make one mistake, end up in a system that actually traumatizes you more, and then you never get out of the system, right? Like let's just say there was hope for this juvenile to get better, but because he was abused at the juvenile detention center, like he can't get better. He feels hopeless, and there's nobody around him to mentor him or make him better, and then it just spirals and just gets worse over time. And so that's what I'm concerned about. Is not just our society and that happening, it's our youth, right? Because it really starts sometimes at a young age, and a lot of our youth is not being influenced in the right manner, or like, an integral manner. And I worry about that. I worry about people just losing themselves, giving up hope, just saying forget it. I'm down this far. I'm beat this low. Like what's the point of getting up? And I'm just here to remind you, like, don't let that happen. I've hit rock bottom so many times and I'm still here, and I still don't think that I'm anywhere near where I should be, but yet I'm working towards it. And it's like if one day doesn't go well, like I have tomorrow, I have the next day. I think of it as like the glass is half full. I have so many, more opportunities, more time to really get this together. And so yeah, I see it that way, and I hope that our youth does, and I hope that these new homeless encampments are not any type of concentration camps. Take care of your loved ones. Know that addiction is not easy. I had a brother who was like, in and out of programs and stuff like that, and they got better, and I'm glad for that. I'm so thankful that they are back on their feet and they repent from all those things that they did, or learn from it, not repent. I don't want to be super religious. Like, they've outgrown those things. But yeah, like, just be mindful of how you think and what you think. And, like I said, you can't control the people around you. There are people who are around us who are incapable, and you can't force capability into them, but at least you can do it for yourself, right? Like, you can always bring yourself back to center when you kind of like spiral out. Always find a way that you can remind yourself, find a system, find hope, ground yourself, and know that you can always come back to the center of yourself, to the balanced version of yourself, to like the easy, peaceful, rested version of yourself that doesn't fear what's going to happen next. And yeah, so that's why I think mental health is really important right now. Um, if you stayed with me, I'm glad you stayed with me. Like, these are really just thoughts that not only did I want to put out there, I wanted to articulate well enough for people to understand that, like, the future, even though we've done all this work on ourselves, like, it's not over. Like, we need to keep maintaining ourselves, maintaining our sovereignty, maintaining, this mental clarity that we have, because sometimes it's foggy. Sometimes even with our diet, we'll eat like cheeseburgers or we'll eat pizza for a week and, something unhealthy. And then, like, all of a sudden we don't have motivation. Just remember, sometimes it's your diet too. And that's like the number one thing that I learned from my teacher, right? My spiritual teacher, Savan Bomar, is like, what is up with all these religions, like all these organized religions and spiritual teachings that do not teach you about having a healthy body? Like, why are they not telling us that our body is completely sacred? Because it is. It is more intelligent than a supercomputer, this body, right? Especially when it's divine and prime and healthy and vital. Um, we can really reverse age, just based on our health and what we consume, not only like physically, not what we consume in our diet, but even just the things that we see and we watch and we expose ourselves to, that can age us. And I'm not talking about the sunscreen. I'm talking about like scary movies and like just things that are like not good for you, like corn, right? I don't want to get censored. Corn is one of those things that I believe when you exploit your sexual energy, it can age you, right? Like, it can make you look really much older than you are. That's why a lot of corn stars, I feel like they cannot maintain a youthful appearance, like without Botox and fillers and stuff, because like what they're doing is they're just like excreting all of their, not just sexual energy, like their energy in general, like their jing, their chi, their life force. They're just like ejaculating it and ejecting it from the body every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And it's like, and if they're not eating healthy, if they're not, reversing the release of some of those minerals and those juices, like, then they're just depleting themselves. They're depleting their life force, depleting their energy, depleting their motivation, honestly. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. And that's why I say, like, there are some teachers out there that you'll resonate with, but I always like, I can tell the real from the wannabe real. And I've experienced people like so and so, Illy Tarson. Let's just say that's just how his name rhymes with that, because I don't want to get censored or have him come on here or anything like that. But he's threatened me in the past because I exposed something about him. And then he came at me with some Masonic stuff. So I was like, nah, bro, like, you are not real. I mean, you're a shill, you're a plant. You know what I mean by not real? So, yeah, I really look for the teachings that are like the most truest forms, because if you find any kind of teachings that have false narratives, false ideas, or just things that are not real, then it really makes you wonder. Like, some of these religions, they they say things, and it's kind of, you have to think about like, what does that mean? Like, being a slave to you in the afterlife, and you're the king, and then I'm just a servant. How does that make sense? Like, what is that really? What is that really what I want? I feel like it's just a repeat of this life, right? Being a servant for the king. So yeah, so let me get off here before it gets, too long. I just wanted to make this video nice and short and talk about mental health. So I hope you resonated with me, or you understood, a little bit of what illuminated my mind about this subject. So I'll see you guys next time. And thanks for tuning in. And also follow if you're not. And like if you saw this.